Hey everyone, welcome back to the gathering where faith meets vulnerability. I'm so excited to be with you guys for another episode. And I don't know. I always say this at the beginning of every episode, but I'm overwhelmed because I feel like as a new YouTube creator, and I've only been doing this for a month, the response that I've been getting on this show is so good. And I'm grateful. I just have to say, I am so grateful. Um, I think that the purpose of this show was really just to be effective. And that is my only prayer, or one of my prayer. I won't even say my only prayer, but one of my prayer when it comes to just ministering or being in the front of the public is to just make sure that I'm being effective. And I don't want to do anything out of self. I don't want to do anything because of money or anything else, but I really want everybody to get to the end goal. And so the gathering was created out of just my desire to want to help women that are like-minded to carry out their purpose, to walk in everything that God has created them to be. And it excites me each and every time that I get to sit down in this chair and in front of this camera just to bring a piece of me that God has made whole and introduce it to someone else to help them to carry out their destiny and their calling. And so I'm here for it, guys, and I hope that you are here for it too. So I just want you to join this community. We are now at 32 subscribers, and I'm just so excited. I'm so excited about that. And just that I'm always just blown away that people want to come and hear little me just talk. So I'm so excited to have you guys. I feel like I say that all the time. I am blown away. What other word did I could use? Forget it. I'm going to use excited. I'm excited, right? To have you guys come along on this journey with me. And I want you to join this community. In order for you to join this community, you need to subscribe. According to the analytics, it says that now 67%, 67% people are watching, but they're not hitting to the subscription button. So do me a favor, please subscribe. I need to get to my goal of 500 subscribers, and I want to do that before summer. So can you help me out? Can you help grow this community? And it will take all of our efforts to do that. Tell somebody about the show. Help me out as well. Give me some uh, ideas on what you would like to hear about so that whatever I speak about or whoever I invite next would be something that you want to hear. It's something that is going to be edifying to you. It's something that's going to help you grow, whatever it is. If there's a question that you want me to answer, whether that be anonymously or not, I am willing to do that. So remember, hit the subscription button, hit the notification bell so that you would know every time a new video drop on this page. And I've been talking to everybody that has been helping me to produce this show, and I'm going to try to hit 100 videos by June. I'm going to try to do that. In order for me to do that, I need to make at least over 20 videos for the next couple of months, right? And so I'm going to need these ideas to come on and to keep rolling, so I'll know what to keep talking about and to keep you guys listening and tuning in. That also means that I will be dropping more videos. So you may see me dropping videos 4 to 5 times a week, and I'm happy for the challenge, kind of. That's a lot of hard work, but I have people that are backing me that's going to be helping me do some things and putting things in order. And I'm also looking for people now to start to bring onto the show to also speak with you, to speak. So Let's make it happen. So for the next couple of months, I am on a mission to hit 100 videos before uh summer break, and I think we could do it. I really do think we could do it. So it's not going to be once a week, maybe starting next month sometime. It might be a few videos dropping, but I'm going to be banging them out and making relevant content for you guys so that this community can grow, and that it don't just grow, but it grow with substance. Uh, yeah, with substance. But today we're going to be talking about, and again, I don't know what I'm going to be calling this show tonight, but I'm going to be um, talking about occupying your gate. I'm going to be talking about occupying your gate. And I'm going to be um, coming from Second Samuel chapter, starting from 13 to 15. And I'm just going to paraphrase it because that's a few chapters that we're going to be talking about. And we're going to be talking about this relationship between David and Absalom. Now, the reason for this video is because I want to encourage every person that's watching to occupy their gate, because there are times where life get in the way, stress, sickness, certain conflicts, or certain spiritual warfare that happens in our life that cause us to leave our gates open. And when we leave our gates open, it gives the enemy time to now occupy those gates that we're no longer occupying. And so this brings me to the story of David and Absalom. But before I get there, I want to give you this story first. And this is a real life story because it's about my daughter and I. My oldest daughter, my oldest daughter is now 17. In May, she'll be 18 years old and will be gearing up to go off to college. But if you've been watching the show, you heard me say that I've been divorced now for 3 years. And um, I was in a 15-year marriage, and my daughter was very, and still is very close to her father. And because I grew up with my mother and father being at each other's necks. Like, their relationship was beyond toxic, and my brother and I we were casualties of it. My mother said nothing good about my father, and my father said nothing good about my mother, and it kind of went back and forth, back and forth. And they did a great job at trying to put us against them, right? So my mother wanted me to be against my father, and my father wanted me to be against my mother. And I guess it was all in them defending their own character and everything else, or I don't know what it's for. But one of the things that I promised myself was, when I had children, no matter if their father and I were going to last a relationship, even though that was my hopes, because I wanted a home that my mother and father couldn't build for me. So I wanted to build my own home. But just in case we couldn't work out, I promised myself I would never speak against the father of my children. And I kept that promise. I, I, I kept that promise. I kept that promise to the point where, um, when things started to go haywire in my marriage, and my daughter was old enough to know that something wasn't right. My ex-husband and I, we didn't really argue like that in front of the children, because that was one of the things that we had said early on in the marriage that we would never do. But the tension was so thick you could slice it with a knife. So we weren't really talking to each other. You could tell he was sleeping on the couch some days, or I will walk past him and I won't say anything. It was obvious that there was fire on the mountain, right? And my daughter, who loved her dad so much, kind of clung to him. And I didn't really knock it, because I was a girl that loved her dad, and my dad couldn't do any wrong, and I felt like my dad was the tallest man in the world and the strongest man in the world, right? um so I didn't really knock it, and I actually loved that she was so close to her father. But I also found out that her father was planting evil seeds in her ear about me. He was telling her things about me, and at this point, she was a teenager, and I never addressed it. I never spoke against him. I never um, countered the lies he told her about me or the things he twisted in his favor about me until she was about 14 years old, I think around that time. And our relationship, like literally, became so, hmm, I would say, distant. And actually, our relationship actually became toxic. And this is my daughter and I, where she refused to listen to me. She refused to talk to me. She became very disrespectful. She became, it was just a mess. It was, and for me, I was so taken aback because this is a daughter that I prayed for. I actually went down on my knees and asked God for this little girl, and He gave her to me a month later after getting down on my knees. And I loved her so much. So to see the hatred that she had in her eyes for me and to hear the things that she would say to me really hurt me, but I still refused to tell her my side of the story. So much so that she even began to deny my God. Like she was saying she don't believe in my God anymore because I was the only one that represented Christ in the home. And of course, she's going to deny my God because the person that represents God is the person that she's being groomed into turning against, I guess. And yeah, and it got so bad to the point where when it was confirmed to them, when I told them that their dad and I was officially going to be divorced and we were going to separate, she refused to live with me. She was like, I'm not coming to live with you. I'm going to live with my dad and all this other stuff. And I was like, okay, well, yeah, that's fine because you're big. You're like almost 15 years old now. So that's fine with me. It's not like you're a little girl. You know how to take care of yourself and all these other things. I was not going to fight her. But what happened is it not only start to deteriorate our relationship of me not just telling her my side or confronting the situation or giving her an explanation, it was also killing her inside as well. It was making her bitter. It was making her angry. It was making her not even want to do her schoolwork. She was failing and she was gaining weight. And it was just, you could tell that my silence was really affecting her. And I was reaching out to my spiritual mother and doing therapy session and everything else for myself, not with her, but for myself, because I wanted to make sure that I didn't react like my mother. Because honestly, I'm someone that, if you've watched and heard my testimonies, I'm a fighter by heart. Like I'm somebody that fights. I'm very key on discipline. Um, I don't I don't wait to confront anything. I'm going to confront it head on, and I'm not afraid to do that either. I will say what's on my mind. I'm not shy about anything, um, or shy to say how I'm feeling or whatever it is. But when it had come to her, I was very careful because I remember how the relationship with my mother and I kind of um it it didn't it kind of broke me in a way. And I didn't want to break her like how my mother and I was broken because I didn't want my daughter to grow up and we didn't have a relationship. Um, so I was very careful. And usually, your child is running her mouth off. How I was raised, you're gonna get knocked upside your head, right? But I refused to even engage her. I would just walk away or I'll just close my door and I will just lay in my bed and I'll be so depressed about this whole situation until the day that my divorce was official. When the judge signed those papers and I was officially divorced, I decided to sit my daughter down in my room, and I will never forget. And I locked the door. Of course, her sisters were trying to be nosy because I'm pulling her in. And I could see on her face, like even how she was sitting, her posture, everything, that she was totally disgusted by me. She didn't want to hear anything from me. Was like my voice had no authority over her anymore. And I realized that my silence is what caused it all. My refusal to confront things is what caused it all, and my delay in doing it. And this was over like a 2-year span that I refused to speak up. And I realized that it was damaging my daughter. And not only damaging my daughter, it was damaging her and I relationship. And so that day I sat her down and I opened up. Well, not totally. I didn't tell her everything because, again, I'm still preserving. I wanted to preserve her father in her eyes, even though he didn't do that for me. But because I always wanted to take the high road, right? But what I did do, I answered some of the things he said about me, and I let her know my side of the story. And also to let her know that I don't hate her father, and despite everything that has happened, and I'm not against him and all this other stuff. But I felt that that day I saw a girl eyes that was cold and hard started to melt by just me confronting the situation, by just me saying something and bringing understanding and bringing answers to some of the questions that I refused to answer, out of just in my head trying to save her. But I wasn't saving her at all. I was damaging her. And this is the reason why I wanted to bring up the story between Absalom and David. And this is coming again from Second Samuel. This, I think it starts from chapter 13, and it goes into 15 and a little bit further in, but I'm going to stop around chapter 15. And so here's this story with David and Absalom. And I'm not going to assume that people know who David is, and that's King David from the Bible, and Absalom is his son. And David had many wives, so he had sons and daughters with a lot of different concubines and his wives. Now, Absalom was an older brother to a beautiful um, sister called Tamar. Absalom and Tamar were beautiful people, and they had a half brother called Amnon. And I might be pronouncing these names wrong, forgive me. But Amnon ended up falling in love with his half sister Tamar to the point where sickness took over his body. Like, this man was so in love with her that he became overly depressed. And he ended up, to make a long story short, raping his stepsister. And when he raped his stepsister, David didn't do anything about it. David didn't reprimand him. David didn't do anything in regards to that situation. And Absalom, who is the full brother of Tamar, was so angry and ended up hating his half brother to the point where it took him, after 2 years, he ended up murdering his half brother. Now, when he murdered his half brother, he ended up fleeing to his grandfather's house and staying at his grandfather's house for 3 years while David was in Jerusalem. And David is mourning over his dead son, but at the same time, he's also missing his son Absalom. And even though he was missing his son Absalom, he never took the initiative to bring him back into Jerusalem. He let him stay in at his grandfather's house until a widow came to him and riddled him a story, and then asked him, why isn't he not bringing his son? Why is he fighting for other people's issues or other people's sons, but is refusing to bring his son back. And when he heard that, he then told his servant to go get his son, bring him back into Jerusalem. But the only thing that could not happen was he couldn't come before his father. He couldn't come before the king. So David sent his son and told him that he could come back home, but he didn't want to see him. So at that point, he's still banishing him. And after 2 years of Absalom coming back into Jerusalem, David was still refusing to see him until he ended up petitioning to go before his father. But the hurt and the pain that was in Absalom's heart ended up causing him to turn against his father. And in doing that, he sat at the gates of Jerusalem and slowly I think it was for 4 years, he engaged the people. He was, when the people were coming into the gates to go see David, he would see them first. He would hear their stories. He will judge their stories, and he was slowly winning the hearts of the people. And 4 years he's sitting at this gate, and David don't even know that his son is slowly turning the people against him. Now, this is a big issue, right? How you as a king do not know that there's somebody at your gates, and that is causing that is causing this secret demise of your kingdom. David, who we know is a warrior, he's not even only a warrior. He has people on his army that are strong warriors as well, that will go to war and win victory in David's name. David didn't even have to show up. His soldiers will go and win victories on his behalf. Now, let's look at David. David now coming into all this stuff, even before the death of his son and the rape of his daughter, he had just lost a son. So I don't know if you guys know about the story between him and Beersheba. He was supposed to go out to war. He didn't go out to war. End up going on the balcony, seeing Beersheba taking a shower, and summoning Beersheba to his home. Now Beersheba is a married woman of one of his most faithful soldiers, and end up taking her in, getting her pregnant, and then to cover up her pregnancy, he end up killing her husband, right? And because of that, God judged him and allowed the son of that woman, Beersheba, to pass away. And then right after that, he had to go back to war to win a victory that his soldiers didn't want to win a battle that his soldiers didn't want to take victory from. So David may have been tired. He may have been, he's known for being a warrior, and he's fighting all these battles, but didn't want to fight the battle at home. He didn't want to, maybe he wanted peace at his home. So when the whole situation happened between Tamar and Ammon, he didn't know how to confront the situation. So obviously, there's some internal issues that's going on with David. And this is the reason why I brought my story up, because internally I was battling with my past, and battling with my future, and battling with my present. My silence was destroying my daughter, the same way David's silence and his refusal to act on what happened caused the hatred in his son's heart to grow. Maybe if David would have addressed his son, I don't know, he didn't have to kill him, but maybe if he would have banished him or sent him to another country or something, maybe all of this wouldn't have played out. But David was slow to act, and we don't know why. And I think that's the way it is in our lives. There's just certain situation that happens in our life that we leave our gates open. We leave our gates open because we're tired. We're tired of warring. We don't want to be warring out in the workplace or in the world or whatever we're doing outside the home and then come into the home and do the same thing. And so we addressed our destinies the same way. We're so tired, we're so overwhelmed, we're so sick with whatever chaos that is happening around us. We leave the gates open. And God has put us, um a fulfillment of purpose that needs to happen, but we have succumbed to everything that has happened, that is happening around us or has happened to us. We have succumbed to the past issues. We have succumbed to the present issues and then succumb to the worries of the what ifs in the future. And we refuse to occupy our rightful places. And this is what I'm calling the gates. Your gates is your purpose. Your gates is what God has called you to do. Are you occupying your gates, or is the enemy occupying your gate? Where you refuse to be, there's something set up that is not supposed to be there. And I want you today, as I'm talking, and I want you to really just look inside yourself, reflect over your past, reflect over even your present, and to see where are there areas that you refuse to occupy. My situation with my daughter, I refused to occupy a place of mediation for her. She needed to, there was answers that she needed to have, and I felt like maybe she was too young to have those conversation. And also I still was so traumatized about what happened between my mother and my father and how they had me in the middle and tossing me to and fro and had me so confused. I didn't want to do that to her, and I became silent. She needed my voice. I was the voice of reasoning. I was the voice that was going to settle her little heart. And I refused to give her my voice. And because of that, another voice occupied her ear. And another voice became so powerful that it started to turn her against me, which means turned her against my God. Homegirl says she's not even going to go to church anymore. She don't even want to hear my voice. It was because I refused to occupy that area that I needed to fulfill in her life. And we could say we're doing it today because there's doubts that we have, there's insecurities that we have, there's rejection, and there's, I don't know, you could put the blank, you could fill in the blanks. You know what you're dealing with. Whatever that is, I want you to make up in your mind today to say, not anymore, Satan. I've allowed you to occupy my gates for so long. It's not going to happen again tomorrow. Can I give you another story? People think that I like this stuff. I like the cameras. I like to be in the forefront. And honestly, it terrifies me even to do the show like this. If it wasn't because of God telling me to do it, I wouldn't even be before you. I actually like being in the background, even though it's very hard for me to hide because I'm almost 6 feet tall. So, but I try to do everything to stay in the back. But all my life, when I was in school, as young as I can remember, I've always been pushed in the forefront. And I know that that's where my place is. My place is in the forefront. As much as I don't like it, as much as I get so nervous, sitting here talking, like staring into the camera, talking to you guys is not no easy task. Let me just tell you this, because sometimes I feel so insecure because I don't know. I don't see faces. I don't know if what I'm saying makes sense. Sometimes I stumble over words because I'm trying to make sure that I'm doing everything right. And sometimes I have to just go with the flow. So even when I'm looking at the videos and I'm like, oh my goodness, I could have said that, or I said this too much, or I could have said something different. I refuse to even look at the videos and look for mistakes anymore. I refuse to, let me go back to what I was saying, but I refuse to, put myself in a place where I'm so hard and critical in myself, because I realized that me being hard and critical in my with myself was causing me to not occupy the spaces that I need to be in. So going back to what I was trying to say earlier is, because I am a preacher of the gospel, I realized that there were times I would stand on the pulpit and I was so intimidated by the pulpit, and I wanted to speak eloquently. I wanted um to just preach well, and everything else that comes with standing in front of people or doing any kind of public speaking. You want to make sure that you're hitting the points that you need to hit, that you remember everything that you study, and make a difference. So when you're looking at the people, you're actually looking for some type of validation. And there was a time where I had to preach, and fear took me, and I don't know what I was afraid of or what it was at the time, because that was a couple of years ago. And I just remember standing on the stage, and I wanted to run. Like, honestly, if that service wasn't taped, I probably would have run. But I, I know that this was a live taping. I didn't want that to be on the internet forever. So I had to stand and occupy that space, and it took a couple of minutes for me to stumble around my words and things like that. And I just remember that feeling that I had, and I said to myself, I said, no, you would never you would never feel that again. And I refuse to stand on any altar of and preach the Lord's messages and his word, and be afraid to the point that I want to run. And I mean, nobody noticed, right? Because this is an internal battle that I'm having with myself. But because I was so critical of myself, because I was trying to do everything perfect, it scared everything out of me, and I almost forfeited my position. And I don't want that to happen to you. And so, just like that day, in that moment, in the place where I was afraid, in that moment where I wanted to run, I made a decision like, Tanisha, you're not going to run. You're going to stand up, and you are going to occupy the space that the Lord has given you. I want you to do the same thing today, right now. I want you to make a decision that I'm going to occupy the spaces that God has given me. I'm not going to forfeit it. I'm not going to allow the enemy to occupy the gates of my marriage. I'm not going to let the enemy occupy the gates of my children, my family, the gates of my workplace, the gates of my education, the gates of my mental health, the gates of my health. I refuse to let the enemy sit at the gate and cause confusion at my gate. I'm going to occupy my spaces. I want you to say it with me. I'm going to occupy the spaces that God has given me. Nope, I'm not going to allow past traumas. I'm not going to allow fear to chase me from my rightful place. I want to give you guys some practical steps into occupying your gates. And number one will be confronting the situation. David refused to confront the situation with Amnon and Tamar, which caused a burning hatred and anger into the heart of Absalom, into the heart of his son, which then caused a total revolt, a total war on himself and his kingdom. And a lot of times when we refuse to confront situation, we don't know the warfare that we are allowing the enemy to wage over our lives. We have to be able to confront some things. I think I've been into certain spaces where the leader refuses to confront, especially confront right there and then time passes, and by the time he gets to it or she gets to it, it has become bigger than it needs to be. But if they would have confronted it at the start of the blossoming of that confusion, it would have been easier to cut down when it was a plant than when it became a tree that was rooted strongly. We have to be able to confront things in our lives when we see something, confront it. Now, this doesn't mean that we confront it in a manner that is going to cause more friction or more confusion, but as people of God, we have to learn how to confront things that will cause peace and not war. There's ways to do things. There's ways to do things. And that's something, honestly, I had to learn because I'm so sharp with my mouth because I'm just a straightforward person and I say it as it is person. I had to learn how to just be more intentional about how I say things, when I say things, and who I'm saying it to, because that makes a big difference, right? There's certain things you could say to certain people, and there's certain things you can't say to another person, but confront it and be mindful and intentional about how you confront it. That's number one. That's number one. Because we're taking back our rightful places. Number two is deal with distractions. David probably was so distracted with everything that was going on with the wars. And even though he was winning, that doesn't mean that he wasn't tired. That doesn't mean that he wasn't weary of the wars. He had so many wives and children that he had to deal with. He had a kingdom to oversee, and there's the death of his two sons, and then there's another son that's on the run that he's estranged to now, and there's just so much things that's going on that distracted him from just taking his rightful place at his gate. Why was there why was Absalom allowed to sit at his gate for 4 years and turn the people's heart against the king? How is that possible? How? A man of war, a man of wisdom and insight, and he was tactful in warfare. So why now there's someone at your gate and you don't even know? Distraction. We can't be distracted by the things that's going on around us that we don't know that the enemy is secretly planting discord at our gates. That's like us as parents, if you even have children, that we are so busy with life and overwhelmed with bills and overwhelmed with just taking care of the kids, and you have to take them to school, do schoolwork, and all these other things. And there's people that do not know that their children are in gangs, that their children are suicidal, or their children are speaking to people on their game system, because some kids are just like on their game all the time, that we get distracted. We have to be careful because the distraction is keeping us away from occupying our gates. So let's be vigilant. Let's try to minimize the distractions. Also, let's talk about this. Is a big one: pride and ego. Pride and ego. Why didn't David go and get his son? The Bible said that David's heart yearned for Absalom after he mourned the death of Abnon. He longed for his son, but he still didn't go and get his son. Pride and ego cannot stop us from moving, cannot stop us from doing what we need to do to reconcile, what we need to do to repair, or whatever it is. We have to remove pride and ego from the situation, because pride and ego is blocking your gates. And the last one, I was only supposed to do three, but I'm going to add this one. Don't forsake your assignment. Don't forsake your assignment. Number 4. Don't forsake your assignment. We have to understand our assignment. Study it, be strategic, be intentional. Don't forsake it, because That's how you're going to occupy your gates. We have to make sure we're not putting anything above. We have to make sure that we're not putting anything above what we need to do, what God is calling us to do. What is God calling you to do at your gate? Don't forsake your assignment. Don't look to the left or the right. Don't let anything around you distract you, but occupy your gate. I pray that this episode bless you. I pray that you can relate to everything that I've said. Go back and read 2 Samuel chapter 13, and you could go beyond that and read, I think, up to chapter 18 or until the victory of David. But go back and just read and see, like, everything that kind of transpired between David and Absalom, and you know it ended up being the death of Absalom. Could it be if David just confronted the situation, it could have prevented the death of two sons? Could it? If his ego didn't get in his way, or his pride didn't get in his way, would there have been a war between him and his son? I want you to just take heart and just know that I believe in you. I know that you have everything that you need to function well at your gate. God has equipped you. God has blessed you. God has anointed you. God has given you the authority and everything else that you need so that you'll be able to occupy that gate. And I'm rooting for you. Listen, I want you to continue to like and subscribe this channel. Let me know in the comment section, what is it that you would like to hear. I want you to also put in the comment section, I'm going to occupy my gate. Go ahead, type that up, run up the comment section, and let me know that you have heard what I said. And today you're going to make the decision to take your rightful place. You belong at that gate. You alone is grace for that gate. And I know that when you take your rightful place, that the blessings that will open up to you, the resources and everything that you need will come into alignment. God bless you guys. Until next time, I want you to like, share, and subscribe. See you soon.